In this video, we'll be doing an AStar Cloud API demo presented by Blackmagic AI. So this is a follow-up video to the previous AStar demo video where we ran AStar in Python and Java code on the Raspberry Pi. Follow the link to the previous demo video in the description section of this video, where you can review more information about running AStar on the Raspberry Pi. Now in this video, we offload AStar processing from the Raspberry Pi to a Cloud API. Now there's a couple of reasons why you might want to do this. The first is it's language and client agnostic. So whatever language you have or client you want to use, you can still access this API. The other reason is we can use more computing power of the Cloud API resources. Now here's a brief overview of what we'll be covering in this demo. First, we're going to go to the Blackmagic AI website. Then we're going to go to the Blackmagic AI GitHub repository that has the AStar repo in it. And this demo will consist of three different ways of accessing the API. The first demo, we're going to run some Python sample code. And then the second one, we'll run it from the Swagger doc API. And then finally, we will use Postman to send a request to our API and to get our response. Now we're at our first step, so we're at blackmagicai.com website. Now what we need to do to get to the repo is scroll down, and then you'll see there's a GitHub icon at the bottom footer. So we'll just click on that, and that takes us to the Blackmagic AI repositories. So let's go here. And then we'll select, once we select the repositories, we'll select the AStar. Run this in our terminal on our local computer. First, we will need to clone this repo. So let's click the code button, drop down. Let's copy the GitHub repo URL. And now let's open our terminal. All right, so we'll do git clone and then paste that URL we copied. And then if we list our directory, you see that we have an AStar directory now on our computer. So let's cd into that, cd AStar. View again. And now let's cd into the Python directory. There's quite a few files here, but the main ones we want to work with are the AStar Cloud Vision API client and the Cloud API demo driver. These two files have placeholders for variables we'll need before we can run these this code. All right, so first thing we'll want to do is open up these files, so we can use any text editor you want. And now I've opened the AStar Cloud Vision API client code, and you can see on line 5 there's a placeholder, so we need to insert the AStar API endpoint URL here. Now we can get that from our actual repo. So let's go back to the Blackmagic AI AStar repository. Let's open up the Python file folder, and then let's scroll down and view the README. So this is the URL that we're talking about. So let's copy this. Let's go back to our code, and we'll just paste it inside the quotes there. All right. Oh, we got extra space, so make sure there's no spaces. Then we'll save it. And now the next file is the Cloud API demo driver. So we'll have to make a similar substitution in that file. All right, so this is the Cloud API demo driver. And then if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see here on line 61, it says insert developer portal API key here. So that is also available in the README of the GitHub site. So that's this value here, test API key for Swagger. All right, so we'll put that here. And we'll paste it in our code. Looks okay. Save. Okay, so now we're done editing the files, and we can close these editors now. And let's go back to our terminal. All right. So now that we're in our terminal, we're going to run this program. So we're going to run Python. And we're going to run the Cloud API demo driver. Let's copy, paste. Remember our previous demo on the AStar on the Raspberry Pi? It includes instructions for how to run this program. So we'll skip those instructions for now, just go right to it. So I'm going to accept the default maze. All right, so here's our maze, and we have to select a starting point and a finish point. So the starting point, I'm going to put at column 2, row 1, and that's going to be a start cell. And once again, the meaning of all these different types of cells can be found in explanation in our previous video. Now I want another cell. Yes, I want another cell because I want to add a finish cell. So I'm going to put my finish cell somewhere right here, which is like column 4, row 9. So put 4, row 9. And this is a finish cell, so it's going to be 7. All right, so you can see we have our start cell here and our finish cell here. So do I want to add another cell? No. And once I do that, all right, so now we have the results from our path planning. So what the difference between this is in our last demo with the Raspberry Pi, we actually ran the algorithm on the Raspberry Pi. In this case, we just submitted our input data to the Cloud API. It's a REST API. And the response contained the solution to the path in the maze. And then we just plotted that just like we did in our previous video. So the only difference here is like we sent our request to the cloud and we received our response from the cloud. And the program is, other than that, the program is the same as when it was running on the Raspberry Pi. All right, so that's our Python demo. So the next one is the Swagger. So let's go to the Swagger documentation. So if you go back to our Python README file, you'll see AStar Cloud Api Swagger docs. So let's click on that. All right, so this brings us to our Swagger documentation. So the Swagger has a way where we can also test the API, and we don't have to run any code on our local computer or anything like that. So let's open up the post documentation, and you can see there's a sample request body already pasted. It's pretty much, it's the same one we used in the Python demo. So the start and end cells might be a little different, but the maze is the same. So once again, refer to the GitHub documentation in the previous video on the format for this request body that we have to send to the AStar algorithm. Now the one thing we will need is the API key. So let's go back to our repo. All right, so that is here, test API key for Swagger. So let's copy that again. So this key is needed to make a request. This key is needed to make a request to the API. So let's, so now we want to try it out. So if you click the try it out button, it'll allow you to edit the, not only add the API key, which we'll paste in right now, but also you can modify the body. So if you want to change the maze, a different maze, you want to use that. Once again, refer to the previous video on generating these text mazes. And also if you want to change the start and finish points. All right, so we have all the information we need, and then we'll click execute. And then if we scroll down, it shows us different versions of using the curl API to call our cloud API. And then if you scroll down here, this is our response body. So once again, refer to the previous video on how to interpret these this JSON response. Basically what it is, we get a waypoints map array of points, and those are the points that we overlaid in the previous one. So in the previous Python demo, we actually ran the program that had a user interface for us, but this is the data we actually get back from the Cloud API that allowed us to plot that path in the previous Python demo version. All right, so lastly, we are going to use Postman. Now, if you go back to repo, you'll see that we have a Postman folder. So if you go to that, there is a Postman collection in there. So if you're familiar with Postman, you can just import that. So let's try that. All right, so I'm going to click import. I'm going to select file. This is on my local system, and there it is. I already have that, so I'm just going to replace for now. All right, so if you click on this collection, AWS AStar API, we'll click on the post request, and you see everything's filled out for us. The API key, and in the body, we also have the sample request. So this is the same one we showed in the previous one. So this is the same body. So once again, the AStar application can be used for many different applications. If you want path planning for a little robot, or if you want to do some kind of path planning for a game or something like that. And there's different other applications depending on how you want to use it. All right, so now I'm just going to send the request. Everything's filled out for us. So remember, you need a body, and you also need this XAPI key header. And let's send that. Oh, and the URL to the endpoint. And our response, you can see it's just a JSON object. We have a status code letting us know if it was successfully calculated, and then our waypoints map, which is what we showed previously. So in summary, there's 3 different ways we demonstrated how to test the Cloud API in this video. You can make modifications to these different methods for your own application. And that concludes this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get updates on future videos. Thank you.